Shabbat Shalom. There's a concept called the missing tile syndrome. It's attributed to Dennis Prager. It's from a book he wrote in the late 1990s. And the missing tile syndrome explains the following, which is, I think, very familiar to all of us, that somebody walks into a room and the room is newly renovated and it's beautiful and everything is in its perfect place and position, with the exception of one item. On the ceiling, there's one tile that's missing. And the nature, human nature, is that our eyes are drawn to that one missing tile. Is that all one can see sometimes, that all one can see in that room is not the beautiful splendor and not the grandeur of the room and not the magnificent detail that extends to every inch, to every aspect of that room, but rather that one missing tile. That's what stands out. That's the idea, the missing tile syndrome, that in life, our nature is to focus on that one thing that went wrong and not on all that was right. Of course, this idea goes back much, much further. In the 15th century, there's a work called Orchot Tzadikim, The Path of the Righteous. It's an anonymous work written in Germany in the 15th century. It's a book of what's known as Musar, a book of ethical commandments and instructions of how to grow as a person, and it describes this very concept. It talks about a culinary, a dish that includes 20 ingredients, and 19 of them are put in perfect measure and perfect proportion. It's wonderful. 19 out of 20. It's just that 20th, whether it's a spice or some other ingredient, that there's something missing, there's something deficient about that 20th ingredient, and that's all a person can taste. Everything tastes off. That's the missing tile syndrome. That's that missing ingredient. And there are those who use this idea to explain a very curious verse in our Torah portion this week, which describes the Exodus. As the children of Israel are leaving Egypt, the Torah says, V'lo yecharatz kelev lishono, that basically dogs wouldn't bark, that God is promising as you leave, dogs will not bark as you leave Egypt in the middle of the night. O Israelites, as you leave your enslavement, even the dogs won't bark. And the question is, who cares if the dogs bark? I mean, what a moment. What an amazing experience after all of those centuries and those generations of servitude, of suffering. And now we're going free. And the dogs are going to stay quiet so as not to add additional stress or suffering or anxiety or whatever the sound of a dog barking in the middle of the night would cause a person to feel. And the answer, and many of the commentators address this, including Ibn Ezra, and the answer is yes, that's exactly it. The idea of the dogs not barking is that so it wouldn't diminish from the experience, because that's our nature. Everything could be perfect. Everything could be going well, and that one small detail could derail, could affect the entire experience. Rabbi Ephraim Mervis offers the example, a contemporary example, in terms of one who hosts a party, say a wedding, and there are 300 guests, and 299 of the guests, they leave and they say, thank you, what a wonderful wedding, mazel tov, what a beautiful party. It was all great, from the dress to the flowers to the orchestra to the food, everything was perfect. 299 guests say that. One guest comes to the host and says, I didn't like the chicken tonight. I thought the music was too loud. This wasn't to my liking, that wasn't to my liking. The rabbi's speech just wasn't good. 299 guests say something positive. That last guest with the critique. What's the feeling? What's the emotion? That one voice of criticism is going to outweigh, or is going to punch above its weight, and going to dominate the experience and to determine the experience of the person who has thrown the party. In some aspects of life, we're willing to embrace imperfection. Think about baseball for a moment. Somebody who succeeds, a batter who succeeds 3 out of 10 times, that's an all-star. That's a great player. 3 out of 10 times, that's 300. That's an amazing player. 4 out of 10 times, it's only been done a few times in history. That's remarkable. That's Hall of Fame material. But in life, we expect perfection. part of our nature. And when we encounter imperfections, it derails us. It affects us in a disproportionate way. And that's our challenge. Our challenge is to see the beauty, because beauty surrounds us, because so much is good, because the missing tile, that's what our eye is trained to see, is the missing tile. But what we have to see is everything else. What we have to focus on is the positive. And that's the message of the Exodus. That's the message that the Torah offers us with speaking to our reality. The dogs won't bark because if they did, it would have affected us. It would have affected our experience. It would have made our experience just a little bit less joyous. And we wanted to maintain the joy of the experience. How do we respond to that? Well, we know the ability to impact with negativity. And so we withdraw the negativity from our lives. And if we have that one small negative thing to say, well, think twice and 3 times and 4 times about saying it, because you know the impact that's going to have. And of course, I'm not speaking about a constructive criticism, a criticism that's aimed to make people better and to make people grow and to help people grow in the way that sometimes we are best positioned to allow that to happen. But speaking about negativity just for the sake of pointing things out, just for the sake of speaking the truth to what we're seeing, think many times before adding negativity to a situation, because the missing tile syndrome is real. Because as the Orchot Tzadikim noted, that 20th ingredient, it impacts everything. Because that's the experience of the 300th guest after 299 had only good things, only contributed to the simcha. And so we do everything in our power to lead lives of positivity, to lead lives in which we acknowledge that life is filled with imperfections, but we're not going to be the ones to focus on those imperfections. Yes, we want to make things better, make the world better, make people better, make ourselves better. But at the same time, we do that by allowing ourselves to see the good that surrounds us at all times. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.